And have you preferred metal over any other substance you've worked with?
And I'm so happy my father was not into sports. Father-son bonding thing was he would take me to Peshawar. My father's from Peshawar. My mother's from India, from Bombay, Mumbai. He's like, sculpture is controversial and it doesn't sell and just leave it alone, Amin. And I begged him, he gave me a show. Your heart, something inside you knows, even if you think, oh, my mind thinks I can get away with it, or the ends justify the means, and bas theek hai, ye chal jayega.
What is art? Is it an expression?
Art is everything. Art is life, at least for me. Art is how you live. Totally, it's all about me, right? I'm a stupid artist.
Is there a contradiction between Islam and art?
No. Oh, for God's sakes. You see, that's what makes me so sad. Like, you're fasting, however, you have no idea about Islamic art history, right? It's boring for me. There's a time and a place, and that's also what's so delicious about performative work.
What process does a globally recognized artist follow to create some of their greatest work, whether it's jewelry, sculpture, or anything that meets the requirement of a performance? Well, in this conversation with Amin Gulgee, you're going to find out the answers to all of these questions and more. Check out this episode of Digitales. Amin Gulgee, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. How you doing, baby?
I'm excited to have you here. I have so much to talk to you about.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. You're a sight for sore eyes.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I was doing a little bit of research, and one of the things that I came across that fascinated me is that you and your family are the products of the American Ivy League education system.
Yeah, I blame them.
And
yes.
Your dad was an engineer.
Gee.
Your mum was a chemist.
Yeah.
Your sister went to Brown. You went to Yale, studies economics.
And art history.
And art history.
I did a double major.
And this family is renowned artists. They could have been anything else. You were built for the corporate world in America.
I know, Johnny, and that's where I wanted to go to.
How does that work? Like, how does that mindset shift happen? And I mean it from, let's say, from your parents, even at your parents' level, working its way down to you.
Well, my father always wanted, I'm very different from my dad. My dad always wanted to be an artist. My grandfather was an engineer under the British Raj. So that was a big deal for a South Asian to be an engineer.
Right.
And then one day, but he was up north and he was a missionary or a preacher.
Right.
And he did that in his spare time. And the chap that was his boss, his British boss said, listen, dude, you have to stop preaching. And he said, no, I'm not going to. So he got fired. So, for the next 13 years, he didn't have another job. And so my father, who was planning to go to art school, had to sort of reassess everything and went through his life on scholarship.
So he was planning to go to art school.
Exactly. So the only scholarships available
so it was not
for engineering.
So it was not by choice. It was because
by necessity.
Yeah, necessity.
Necessity. Yeah. So he went there.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, my parents were incredibly liberal with me. I could have long hair, short hair. It didn't really matter.
You mentioned your household being bohemian.
Oh, it was. Yeah. It was. It was an artist's house. It was a circus. I lived in a circus.
What do you mean by circus?
Because there were always people in and out, everybody, entertaining, parties. Yeah. You'd walk in every day. There were new people in your house, which was wonderful, but a little overwhelming. And so I would hide upstairs and read.
Yeah.
So coming back to me, my parents were super liberal with me. They only asked for one thing.
Yeah.
They said, don't be an artist. I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no interest in going through your kind of life. I wanted a quiet, obscure life in America.
Yeah.
That was it. So I did economics, and then I took art history freshman year and had a second major in it, and it ruined my life.
So when they raised you with the mindset of don't be an artist.
Right.
And you went to college and you took art history, at what point did you decide, all right, I'm doubling down and I'm doing this art thing?
I guess I came out of the closet with art in New York this was the 80s, right? It was Wall Street, everybody, Lehman Brothers, all your investment banking wallahs were all interviewing at Yale, right?
Yeah.
Academically, I did well. and I never went to any of the interviews. So I sort of graduated thinking, oh, wow, I'm just going to go live in New York. Yeah. Having no plans. And then I started making jewelry because my father had never engaged with jewelry.
But there's got to be another reason, right? So
What?
just because your father didn't engage with jewelry, you made jewelry? Was
Yes. Also, I love jewelry. I love jewelry.
So you would not have done any sort of traditional paintings that you're fine
Oh,
with?
nine.
Because your father did it.
Yes.
And you didn't want to be in his shadow.
No, I wasn't even thinking. You don't think. Like, economics was real hardship for me. I hated economics, right? But I got my major in it because I was still in denial about everything.
Right.
I was in denial about coming back to Pakistan. I didn't want to come back to Pakistan. I did not want to be an artist.
Right.
And, I suffered 4 years. Art history was wonderful, was terrific. It was easy. I would take study breaks and do my art history stuff. And I won a prize for it, for my thesis on Islamic gardens. I won a prize for my thesis. And that's when actually my parents found out I was doing art history. Because they're like, Beta, we saw the dean and they said you won a prize. What is this art history about? I was like, yeah, I have a second major. And so after college, I was a little lost in New York. And, and I had done metal work and I came home for a week or two just as a little break and I made a little piece, and then I had a show at the PSCC and I went back to New York carrying my stuff and that's how it worked.
Why metal?
I'd done a science fair project when I was in high school with copper and I loved copper. I just loved the fact that it doesn't tarnish, it remains. There's a permanence to the material. I just love, but then I forgot all about it and kind of came back. Like I've just had my book out now, a monograph on my work, published by Skira, which is I'm really glad they picked me up. And Skira is a publisher, Milanese-based publisher. They've done books on Picasso and Matisse. And, they were a big deal and I'm so grateful they got me. And but then now I'm writing my memoir, kind of a tell-all, and
And have you preferred metal over any other substance you've worked with, even though you may have played with others?
Sure, I have. I grew up painting. It's funny, my father didn't want me to be an artist, but that's the way we bonded. He would put up a canvas. He said, "Beta, you paint and I paint." And it allowed me to use whichever paints of his I wanted to.
What age was this?
Ever since I can remember, ever since I was a tiny kid.
So you would paint together with your dad?
No, I wouldn't paint together. We'd have two canvases.
You would have two canvases?
I'd have my own, he'd have his, and I'd paint.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy my father was not into sports.
I find this so interesting. He would spend his time with you. He would bond with you by painting.
Yes.
But he told you, don't be an artist.
I know. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Because he's kind of training you, in a sense, to be an artist.
Well, there was no training involved. I just did whatever I wanted to do, and then we'd laugh about it afterwards. I'd look at his, he'd look at mine, and we'd smile and have a big laugh over it.
And you
it
did
was
this
very informal.
You did this as
all till I was 15 or 16. I did this all the time. That was a bonding time.
And did he do this with your sister too, or just you?
No, just me, which is really kind of odd. And then another father-son bonding thing was he would take me to Peshawar. My father's from Peshawar. My mother's from India, from Bombay, Mumbai.
Right.
They met in London. He's 10 years older. He courted her and they got married in Paris.
Right.
So he'd take me to Peshawar to buy lapis lazuli.
Yeah.
And we'd spend a week, 10 days in Peshawar, living in Namak Mandi, the salt market.
Yeah.
It's a great name. And Peshawar is fantastic and the food is fantastic. And we deal with the lapis merchants there.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And did you ever create anything with lapis with your dad?
No.
But
I have not created anything. In fact, no.
So
once he asked me, let's do something together, I'm like, no.
Why
no.
Why is
I'm
that?
territorial. I want my own stupid crap. No, Johnny, no. That's where I draw the line.
Did it ever feel odd, sort of being under the shadow of such a big artist?
I never felt I was under the shadow. My dad was my pal. He was not a mentor, I remember when I came back in the 90s to, begged Ali Imam for a show. Nobody was showing sculpture at that time. And I begged him and I pleaded him and I tried every little trick in the book. I'm your son, your friend's, son. How can you not give it to me, uncle? Give me a show. He's like, sculpture is controversial and it doesn't sell and just leave it alone. And I begged him and I begged him, he gave me a show. So, no, and then so when I was working back in the day, and I would say, Dada, what do you think of this work? What do you think of that work? He'd say, Beta, just show it to me when it's finished. And I'd initially be really hurt that he's not interested. And later on, he gave me the greatest gift. He allowed me to find my own voice. He didn't, we were friends.
So he would let you finish it because you came to terms with what you'd created without his input at all.
Right. Basically, he was saying you have to learn from your own mistakes, sweetheart, which is profound. Because fathers can be overbearing and try to make you in your own image, and he didn't do that to me. We remained friends. Both of them, both my mother and father, I would tell them everything.
That's an amazing relationship.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. Shukr alhamdulillah, I'm really lucky that way.
You must miss them a lot now.
Oh God, yes.
Especially now with Ramzan and Eid close by.
Well, Eid, yes. Ramzan, I like the month of Ramzan. I don't fast. Yeah. But it's always been a fantastically productive time for me. A time where I've just accomplished stuff. Really taken on challenging shit. And that's, again, not planned. I'm not like, oh my God, it's Ramzan, let's take on a project. No, it just always happens this way. It's a lunar calendar, so it always shifts. But for some reason, I've always had great Ramzans. And I like how quiet it is. I like how contemplative it is. I enjoy that. It's just Eid now is difficult because, I moved into the area where the museum is now, in the 90s, late 90s. And when I moved, my mother was like, when I was 25, she's like, okay, you're too old to live. You and John have to move out now. You have to move to Clifton. There were 6 rooms constructed in this 2,000 square yard plot. 3 we lived in, 3 I worked in, 3 was my workshop. And the rest of the yard was just full of figure trees. As it was a lovely, lovely, lovely existence. And then my mother also decided or demanded that you're going to throw us Eid lunches. My parents were hyper-social, so they would go out before and after. But they would come to our place for lunch and we would have beer and biryani.
Oh, what a combination.
I'd get my cook to make biryani.
Yeah.
And then a huge thing, pot of biryani. And I would give them biryani and we'd just chill. We'd laugh. Then after that, I'd go to, I'd take a nap and they'd go out and, socialize some more.
Nice. That's interesting. That's such an interesting tradition.
Yeah, and that stayed.
Yeah.
That stayed year after year after year after year.
So how do you occupy your Eid now?
I try to leave the country.
Oh, okay.
I miss them.
Yeah.
It's the only, and if I'm here, it doesn't matter. That also doesn't matter, Because I think about them all the time. I never go to graveyards. Why should I go to a graveyard and look at a piece of rock? And I can look at my father's work and I feel the energy is always surrounding me. I don't need to go to a place. If there is the afterlife, they are with me now.
Yeah. Their departure is very sudden.
They were murdered in 2007 by the servants.
How did you come to terms with something so... I don't know, it's traumatic.
You never come to terms with something like that. You don't. It still doesn't make any sense. I still ask the questions, why? But that's where I guess Islam kicks in, or at least for me it kicked in, submission to the will of God. What else can you say?
Yeah, because some things just don't make sense.
Nothing makes sense. There's so much in this world that doesn't make sense. It's horrific.
Were you able to figure out why that happened?
Sure. The 2 people were caught. They went to trial. They went to jail.
But did that give you the resolution you needed?
No, of course not. My parents aren't coming back. Even if there was a death penalty, they wouldn't come back. They're not coming back. But then again...
How long did it take you to sort of go through the stages of grief and come to at least...
I didn't go through... Right after that, my world went black, right? There was no stage there. I felt dead. I always have a back issue. My back collapsed, and then Benazir was killed. 10 days later, Karachi burned, and up till then, I thought I could keep it together, and then my back completely collapsed. After that, I was in huge amounts of pain. I would be lying on the back, and the doctor said, "Hey, you need surgery because the discs, blah blah blah." And I said, "At this point, I cannot afford to be in hospital." So he said, "Fine, physiotherapy, but it's not going to solve the problem, but physiotherapy." So I was in constant pain all the time. Physically, it would take me an hour to walk like 30, like 50, like I would hobble everywhere. Luckily, again, Shukr Alhamdulillah, there were 2 shows of mine that were already booked. One was in Dubai, at Art Space Dubai, and one was at the Petronas Towers in Malaysia, in the museum in Malaysia. They were both solo shows. So I had to start working again. So I would hobble to the workshop. I would literally hobble. My workshop, it's not so far away, but it would take me forever to get there and sit there and try to put it together. And I think that's what kept me sane. Because I didn't seek therapy after this. I didn't seek anything after this.
You didn't at all?
No, I didn't. I was too terrified. I could not be vulnerable. I felt so threatened. I didn't know how this is. Dekhen, iske pehle, before this, my place was an open place. My mother would scream at me, "Dekho, your chokidar sleeps all day." I said, "Ma, because he's awake at night." I had one chokidar, one drive. It was the gate was always open. I'd never thought in a million years. So yeah, my life changed.
You're a spiritual person. Do you consider yourself a spiritual person?
Dekho ji, everybody's spiritual. That's why I'm a spiritual person. He's a spiritual. No, Johnny, we're all spiritual.
Yeah, but some people are not connected to that spiritual.
Everybody is connected.
Or they forget.
Yeah, perhaps they forget or they ignore it.
Or they ignore.
How could... Everybody is there. And unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath, good or bad is inside you. It tells you, Your heart, something inside you knows, even if you think, oh, my mind thinks I can get away with it, or the ends justify the means, and bas theek hai, ye chal jayega. But deep inside what you're doing is wrong. I really feel everybody is spiritual, like everybody's an artist.
And you've said that art is a spiritual act. Is it because you believe everyone is spiritual, or is there something else that is...
Art is everything. Art is life. At least for me, art is how you live.
What is art? Is it an expression?
Art can be anything you want it to be. Art can be anything you want it to be. There are no rules in it.
Because you've said that art is an act of spirituality.
My father might have said that.
Okay.
My father, I tried to not use the S word.
Okay.
I shy away from it.
Why
I
is
shy
that?
away from it.
Why
because
is that?
It's like me working, Johnny. Because as an artist, you come to my gallery, you have a question, I'll answer it. You want me to pose for a selfie, I'll do it. But my workshop, there's a paradigm shift. I've got 4 locks before my workshop.
Really?
Yes. When people say, I want to come and watch you work, I'm like, yeah. There are like 4 locks to my workshop.
Wow.
Even once John came in and I screamed my head off at him.
Yeah.
My parents were not encouraged in.
Yeah.
Nobody's encouraged in. That's my own private space. Like,
Has
this,
anyone
the
else?
S stuff,
Yeah.
it's my own private space.
Has anyone else seen it?
What, the workshop?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, my chaps have seen it.
Yeah. But you don't allow people...
I really don't like it. Of course, if somebody has to come film me working, they film me working.
Right.
But it's very reluctantly
So it's on
done.
a need-to-know basis.
Exactly. If you're going to give me your right hand, fine. Like my father's very different. I mean, I do performance art as well, but he loved watching watching him paint.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
He enjoyed that. I don't. Also, my process is very different.
But many of your installations have had a component of engagement. I believe the Whispers and the Golden Hour.
Yeah, like these
So there is
performances.
that component that was there in your installations
Yeah,
too.
yeah, but that's different. What I do is I'll set up a installation like in Chicago, Kiss of the Spider Woman. The installation I set up, and then I do a performance, Kiss of the Spider Woman, to activate the performance. So I have these collaborative performances entailing 18 other people and myself, and we'll all do a time-limited based performance work around it, like 77 minutes. And it tells this strange narrative which relates to me and to the other artists at the same time, and to issues I want to address.
And what is it about the performance that is different as an expression of art to you versus, let's say, what you create in jewelry or versus painting?
I don't paint. Jewelry I've stopped making since the year 2007, so I make sculpture. Yeah, they're very different. One is performance is ephemeral. Sculpture that I do in copper is pretty permanent unless you take a hammer to it. It's pretty there. Yeah, they're very different, and yet I use my sculptural objects in these performative works. I use helmets and rings, and I create these elements that can be moved and used for my for my fairy tales. These are kind of my own fairy tales.
So they become props in your story.
They're not props. They're sculpture. But they're just worn. They can be put onto you.
Interesting. So they're actually sculpture made of metal.
Right.
That you will then include in your performance.
Include within the performance.
Yes. And so they play a role in the performance.
Yes. They become very integral. So I work with whatever artist or myself when we talk about it, and I look at their art practice and find the piece that fits right into them.
Right.
And so I want a kind of metamorphosis to occur, so they become one with my mask.
Right.
The idea of a shaman. They become something else.
In that performance, they become something else.
In that performance.
Does that stay with that piece of sculpture when you take it out of the performance?
It changes. It can. Sometimes I use it again, sometimes not.
Right.
Sometimes it gets bought. It leaves me altogether. Sometimes I reprocess it. And
right.
It sometimes changes, sometimes it's the same. It all is on the energy of the performance itself and how things are fitting together.
So it doesn't mean that just because it was used a certain way in the performance that it will continue to be that way?
No, because I don't repeat these performative works.
Right. Okay.
Like, it's not an ongoing show. It's not a Broadway show.
So you just
It's a one shot.
Oh, that's it?
That's it, honey. It's a one-night stand.
Why is that? Why not have repeats of those?
Yeah, Danny, it's boring.
No, but
it's boring for me.
It's boring for you because the audience is new.
I'm totally. It's all about me, right? Yeah. I'm a stupid artist. It's boring for me. There's a time and a place, and that's also what's so delicious about performative work. It's that period. It's that time. It's that connection of a certain group of people, of a certain event, and you bring this energy together. Like in Chicago, I had people who had just done their masters from the Art Institute of Chicago. I had all of these Indian classical dancers who were American Indians, Indian origin Americans in Chicago. And then I recruited friends from Yale. I had a friend of mine who's a 10-year professor at Trinity College in I think it's in Texas. And she came over, and she's very respected. And I had to go around with my Corona mask on, asking people, "What's your sexuality?" And I told her to bark it at people. She's this beautiful Nigerian woman who could really carry this off.
Right.
And then she would take a notepad out and she'd make a note of it.
Wow, that's fascinating. You can do that here in this environment.
Why not? You can do a lot. See, that's all my life. People have told me you cannot do this in Pakistan. You cannot do that in Pakistan.
I'm not saying it more as a statement. I'm maybe asking it as a rhetorical question. Can you do that here?
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
Is there a contradiction between Islam and art?
No. Oh, for God's sakes. You see, that's what makes me so sad. Like, you're fasting. However, you have no idea about Islamic art history, right?
No,
you don't.
Don't.
But you'll do the ritual. Islam has this huge, like... Okay.
So, I asked this because I'm in the process of trying to understand and learn it.
Please do, because,
Because there's a historical
But
part, there's
Johnny,
a
why?
cultural part.
What do you think brought me back into this bloody art business? I really fought against it, right?
So walk me
Really?
through that. Why is it such a contradiction? It's cultural, right? It's part of the culture, Islamic culture. Yet somehow,
You're just talking about representation. Religious, you can't represent religious people in art, but that leaves a whole other playing field,
Yeah.
left and right.
yeah,
One particular bit of it, you know? And you can't take that to mean everything. And that's actually what brought me back into the arts. I mean, even if I wasn't Muslim, I am Muslim. But even if I wasn't, I mean, Oleg Grabar, I mean, that's, you know, I had to fight for my thesis at Yale, right? Because back in the day, there was no Islamic art department at Yale.
and he was one of the top Islamic art guys.
But he wasn't at Yale. So I went to Harvard,
yeah.
and because my father knew him. And I
Yeah.
said, please, can you be my secondary advisor so I can
Yeah.
write my paper on Islamic gardens?
Yeah.
And he's the one who helped me win the prize. You know, and it really...
What did you discover about Islam and art when you were doing that search or that discovery piece during your college years in writing that paper?
What did I discover? I didn't discover anything, but no, I made some arguments for my thesis, but
Yeah. So what were the arguments in your thesis, for example?
basically, see, it's taking a very Western approach. The person who had done research on Mughal gardens, I concentrated on the Mughal garden of the plains for my thesis. And Elizabeth Monihan, who's the authority on Mughal gardens, said that these were just gardens for the emperor's pleasure, unlike Versailles, which symbolized the power, the divine and secular power of the king.
Right.
And I argued against that. In fact, all of her research was pointing in that direction, her own research.
So you argued that Mughal gardens
Were also
like the Versailles gardens.
Exactly, an expression of divine and secular right, you know, of the emperor, political power
Right.
of the emperor. And all of research, but it's just this sort of bias that you have. Oh my God, the South Asians are like so hedonistic. All they want to do is hang out with their concubines.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And our own research pointed it, and Oleg Grabar said, hey, I mean, look at miniatures.
Yeah.
There's very little written. I mean, you can read all their memoirs, but they'll only tell you how many bags of cement they used. So look at the miniatures if you want to know the function.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's right there, right under your nose.
And what does it say?
It says what I said. And now, you know, that they're an expression of divine, you can see it's courtiers.
And the answer lies in the miniatures.
The answer lies, and in her own research.
And when you looked at Islamic art, did you restrict yourself to that period of time, or did you go back into time and looked at different regions where Islam was present as well?
Sure, you look at the whole 9 yards of it, but it's more than Islam. I mean, basically my education has been in Western art, right? It's
Right.
Yale. It's
Right.
back in the 80s and 90s. It was
Right.
pre-woke, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not you, sweetheart.
Yeah.
I'm not a spring chicken, you know?
I ain't no spring chicken either.
You're a delicious murgi, Johnny.
Coming back to Islamic
Yes.
art, do you think that there is a perception that you might be too Western for this environment in creating that kind of, let's say, expressive product?
You know,
or-
one question I get asked in Pakistan and wherever I travel is, where are you from? Aap kahan se hain? And you know what's one lovely about not belonging somewhere?
Yeah.
You belong everywhere.
Yeah.
If you're an outsider, it gives you a great sense of freedom.
Yeah.
I cherish that.
If you're an outsider, it gives you a great sense of freedom.
Yes, because belonging
Belonging can be
difficult.
entrapping. Yes,
Exactly.
belonging can be entrapment.
Right. So if
Right.
you don't belong somewhere, you belong everywhere.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good line. So you shouldn't be entrapped by the belonging. But you see, but I'll give you a counter argument to that. A lot of people want and seek that belonging because they find discomfort
In being free.
in being free, because they would not know
Yeah,
what
I
to
know.
do.
See, I don't watch cricket. I don't care whether Pakistan wins or loses.
Right.
It's a game. Get over it. You know, like... No, but people love crowds.
Yeah.
Even with art.
Yeah.
Art is political.
Yeah.
You belong to one camp.
Yeah.
You belong to the other camp. How
Yeah.
about just making the crap?
Yeah.
letting yourself go, do what your heart,
How do you achieve that state? How does one achieve that state of freedom
I don't know.
and letting go?
I don't know.
When did you achieve that state?
Okay, I had an epiphany because I've been writing my memoir now. It's called Glitch, the story of me.
Right.
So, I got into the National Honor Society in high school. It's a stupid American school thing.
Right.
And it's an honor, whatever. And I was walking back because I hadn't told my parents about it. And I wasn't, and then I had this realization that, Amin, you can't change. This is what you are. You're kind of a given. The things you have to work on, like sadness, whatever, happiness, but you profoundly are a given.
And this was what age?
I must have been 17.
And you had this epiphany at that time?
I had that epiphany at that time. This is it. Profoundly, you cannot change.
You could.
You can't. You are what you are. Society
You could
has
set
a
up-
lot of... No, you
could set up
do
the right
change. I'm
habit
a much
system,
happier
yeah.
person now than I
Yeah.
was when I was 17. You do change. You work on things. You work on issues. You work on things. But what is your
The core
bunyad?
spirit, yeah.
Your bunyad,
The bunyad,
your
yeah.
foundation
Okay,
is
fair.
you. This is the way you are.
Yeah. So the foundation of a soul or an individual cannot change, but they can refine that
They
further.
can refine it. They can make their life a little happier. I think we should all strive for happiness. At
So
least
that
that's
means
what I do.
At a core, what you're saying is a doctor will know if they're a doctor, an engineer will know.
No. It's beyond
art-
that.
then-
It's beyond profession. It's beyond, I'm an artiste.
Sorry, I don't mean it. I was giving an example of a profession, but I didn't mean it that way. So I mean it more like if you're an extrovert, you will always be an extrovert.
Right.
If you're an introvert, you will always be an introvert.
Basically, yeah,
Right.
you are. And then, try to manage life and navigate life through those parameters. And also work on the issues. Like for me, I also realized I need to be happier. I have to work on happiness.
Is happiness the desired state or is contentment? the
Oh, I
desired
don't ever want to be content. I'm horrified by contentment.
Why is that?
Complacency and contentment. It means you're dead.
Happiness means that there is a bit of
Happiness, joy. Like, joy.
joy requires an active pursuit of something.
No,
it doesn't?
No,
To me,
no.
contentment-
Joy can be a good swim.
Yeah, but then it's an
Joy-
active pursuit of that, right?
No,
I am
there's no
seeking-
pursuit. It's the act of doing. It's the process. Joy can be me putting something together in your workshop. Like where it's just happening. That's maybe it's an energy. Maybe not even call it joy, but a certain kind of out of body experience. Where you feel transcendent for a second.
And so what I'm trying to say is that is not a constant state. You cannot be in a
No, of
state.
course, no.
Okay,
no,
so
no.
what I meant by contentment versus happiness or joy is contentment can be a constant state.
I never want that.
No,
but
but
content.
But in a state of contentment, I can be proactively seeking moments of joy.
Yeah, but how can you be content? Are you content? No, seriously. How can anybody
We
be
wouldn't
content?
be having this conversation
No,
if I
how
was
can
content.
it be anything? I mean,
No, there are
unless
people-
you're like Gautama Buddha. And
But
even
that is what
that took
Buddhism-
a while.
but that's what
that
that religion teaches that.
sense of enlightenment. Who the hell wants to be that enlightened? I don't. I want to be right there. I want to be my bottom-feeding artist that I am.
Right.
I want to be a prawn at the bottom of an ocean floor.
Right. So contentment is not a state that you would strive for.
I would not want to be. I don't think I would ever can
So
be
then
content.
okay, so
And
then
I don't want to be content, and I don't recommend contentment for anybody else.
I'll tell you why I'm asking. Joy is not permanent. Joy,
No, of course not.
Okay, so when joy you're done
Gone.
with gone, where do you end up?
You end up.
I
with-
want to end up at being content.
No. Please don't end up. You're too good looking to end up there. Please don't. No, you.
Then where should I end up? Once I'm done with joy,
Well, once you're done with joy,
what's that other state?
then it's I don't know. It's kind of like an exhale, because that exhilaration is intense, and then you go,
Yeah.
and then you I mean, my life is project to project, right?
Right.
That's what gives me, interest. I'm not going to say the C word now.
Right.
I almost said contentment, and then I got scared.
It gives you joy. It gives you joy. Your project gives you joy.
My project gives me joy, or
And so
whatever.
when the project
it's
is
the next thing to do, the
Yeah.
next challenge,
Yeah.
the next thing ahead of my nose.
Yeah.
I'm like a donkey. I need the carrot.
Yeah, yeah. So if it's not okay, so it's joy, and when it's not joy, it's what's that state? I'm trying to figure out what that
See,
state
I'm not
would be.
bipolar. I don't go down. So it's that, and then
It's opportunistic. Maybe it's a state of being opportunistic.
no, it's a state of being engaged with the next challenge. That takes up a lot of your mind space, right?
So maybe a state of sort of pensive planning, or
It's not pensive though. It's
No.
an active thing.
It's active.
It's active, right? It's exciting. I mean, I take on these ridiculous projects that, they're really big, and, conventional wisdom says I need a lot more money and a much bigger team to do them. So they're kind of overwhelming, and you just fall into that, the next thing to do.
if you could do a next thing with anyone in the world, any artist in the world to collaborate with, who would it be and what would you do?
Oh, wow. An artist. Well, an artist that has been amazing for me growing up is Madonna. I think she did amazing things back in the day, in the 80s.
Right.
I'm archaic,
Yeah.
right? I'm so old.
Yeah, she really
I'm
did
so
break-
old.
No, but she did break the mold.
She broke the mold, she broke the ice. I mean, wow, that lady really
Yeah.
sort of, and made change, real, genuine change.
Yep.
I have the greatest respect for her.
And what would you do with her?
I'd kiss her. और क्या करना है जानी?
Derek, my question was bad. I should have known the answer to that.
I kissed a girl. I liked it.
Is there... Look, you obviously have a very full, colorful personality. And so...
What is
In
that?
case
a
I haven't
euphemism
taken it.
for? Yes.
No, but my question is that with that, has there ever been any misconception about your work that you would have wanted to clear?
No. I mean, if there's any conception of my work, I'm glad. I'm grateful for it. But it's misconception. I myself don't know. See, when you're working, you don't have... It's not sloganism. Nothing is a simple message.
don't
when
keep
you're
a
working,
message-
you're trying to figure yourself out, Johnny. That's
No,
the...
so there's no like you don't go into the project or the work with a key, like a message or an intention.
No, I'm not a propagandist. So I don't. And that's the fun of it.
So it's
That's the
free-flowing.
joy of my workshop. Why do you think I don't
Right.
allow people in? The threads that you're holding. The work leads me. I don't lead the work. These objects demand to be made. They're like these stupid things. They're like furies in my head, these projects.
Right.
They occupy all my headspace.
Right.
And they demand to be made. They demand to be brought into existence. And they don't even tell me what they are. And that's the real joy and mystery of the process.
Right.
And a lot of times, like, I'm really structured, I'm really neurotic, so
Yeah.
I'm really structured. And and a lot of times I myself don't know where it's going. And a lot of times nothing happens.
Right.
I've had weeks in my workshop where all I'm doing is like breaking apart shit. And I'm like, Toro, usko khol do, sab khol do, wapas jayega.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. And then certain moments, everything comes together.
So you're going into it with a free, open mind.
Sometimes you have a vague idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a bit more of an idea. Sometimes that idea really changes. It's always fluid.
Yeah.
And these things stay with you. Like what replaces the joy? This replaces the joy.
So what you're saying, and I want to see if I say this
It
back
makes any
correctly.
sense. Yes. And
What
it
you're
doesn't.
saying is that you have comfort in the state of fluidity.
Yes.
In that state of fluidity, you have found great joy.
Comfort in the state of fluidity.
You found comfort in the state of fluidity.
Yes, I guess.
Because clearly you're saying that in that state where I have no intention necessarily, where I am working, I find the greatest joy.
Yeah, it's a magic. It's more than
Because most
comfort
people don't find comfort in fluidity. Most people want
and I
routine
didn't, and I
and
did.
structure.
Yeah, so did I. I'm a structured
And,
person. I'm scared of everything.
you know, and so they want what is familiar, they want what is repetitive, they want ease, and they're okay with that. And that's what they feel most comfortable in.
And
What
strange enough, so that's my instinctive way of being. It is to have everything the same all the
But
time.
correct. And so for most people, it's like they would love to have everything the same all the time. But you are saying that you find the greatest joy in being in that state of fluidity inside your workshop.
Yes, and strangely enough, that's how I find comfort too. Like most people, I would love everything to be the same all the time. Like
So how have you figured out how to be comfortable in that state as well?
I don't know. I haven't.
Is it practice?
No, it's just the way. It's my work process. It's look. My first priority in my life is my work. As an artist, I don't hold allegiance to anybody, any flag other than my work. And to be true in it. And I have to be true in it, to be as true as I possibly can in my work. And to do things that I want to do. It's so important to me. And that becomes my focus. And so everything else falls on the wayside. You know what I mean? Everything else falls on the wayside. How people react, don't react. I'm grateful if somebody reacts well. I'm grateful if I get a good review. Somebody doesn't respond to it, it's fine. If I don't get into a certain show, it's fine. Let's just keep on moving on. And luckily, I've had stuff to do that I totally believe in. Like we had this conversation off the mic, of the whatever AirPod, is you asked me, it's like one thing I'm really lucky, again, I'll repeat the shukr alhamdulillah, is since I started, I've always done stuff that I believed in. There's nothing in my life that I'll say, "Nahi, I did that for the money, or I did this for that, or I did that to please that person." I've never done that. I've always done, and I told myself way back in the day when I was so scared of being an artist, and I was like, "Dekho, Amin, I'd rather make a pair of earrings that are completely mine than this 50-foot monument that somebody else has 20% in determining what it would be."
So you don't paint on commission, or sorry, you don't create you don't create on, you don't create on commission.
If we were closer, bad things would happen. No, I don't.
Because it's not
I've taken on commissions. I've done a few in my life. Like I did the project on Bilawal Charangi. ठीक है ना? So I've created 3 models for them, and they chose one of them.
Right.
It was a consortium of nationals and multinationals. It was supposed to be 20-foot high thing on Bilawal Charangi.
Right.
And then these people left me alone. They gave me all the money, 100% advance, which was terrible. Because that monument went from 20 foot to 40 foot. I was like, when will I get another chance? I mean, this is my village, Karachi, right? This is my turf. So I was like, let's try 40 foot high. And I did these, and it changed and it metamorphized. And, that was one commission. And I've done very rare commissions. I always say, look, I have pieces. If you like something, please take it. If you don't, I understand. And with the jewelry, I never did a commission work. It's there. Acha laga, le lo, nahi acha laga, na lo. It's fine. Life, one moves on.
What is it about a commission work that you are not interested
Because
in?
I myself don't know. I start with an idea, it goes somewhere else, right?
So can't that be a commission? Hey, figure out something and this is the space, make me something. Like, isn't that a way to commission?
I know, but I don't trust people. You know what I mean? It's going to be a headache and then I don't want to. But this is not what you said. I'm like, oh God, no.
Okay, got it.
It's not what you said. It's not fair for the person too.
Right.
It's
so
not
there's an
fair
expectation.
for the client. It's an expectation. You said, okay, you had this in mind and now you've come up with this and it's completely not what we'd envisioned. And I can understand the client and why put the client through grief and myself through grief.
You mentioned that you get asked this question a lot, where are you from?
Right.
Is there a question you have never been asked that you wish you had been asked or you are asked?
I can't say that now. There's only one question I want, honey. And I can't say that.
I should have thought better about my questions before asking them.
No, I mean, no.
Is there a...
I'm very easy. If you ask me, I'll tell you.
You should
I
tell
don't
me.
mind any question. You can have, or one question nobody's asked me. You know where I run to? You know where my joy, my comfort zone is?
Yeah.
Is books. So I read obsessively, and I always have as a kid, and I still do. And I love stories. I read everything, fiction, novels, stories, from like classics to adult to sci-fi. I read everything, and I jump. And they take me to time and places, and I love stories because they're like sculpture. A novel is constructed. You're playing with time and space. They're so wonderful. I love the fact there's a sentence that has a structure to it. You can break the structure. Some, writers break structures, but it's very consciously broken. I just love writing.
Anything that you feel over time has stayed with you longer than other works, a book?
Love in the Time of Cholera. I read that twice. It's wonderful.
What is it about? I haven't read it.
It's about love, and how it just comes around and it happens. It's a happy ending.
And how you were mentioning that books, I can understand that writing is a play on time and space and the way the author...
Structure.
There's structure to it, and the author then sort of plays with time and space, right? Yeah. And characters.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how you were relating that back to sculpture, because sculpture But sculpture is material, space. Where is the element of time coming in?
There is also time. And the time, it is and it's not there. Because even when you're talking about text, whether you talk about calligraphy or an appropriation of Buddha's face, you're talking about time here. These texts weren't created yesterday.
Right.
These texts were developed hundreds of years ago.
Right.
So you are talking about time.
Okay. Because you're carrying forward something from the past.
Yes.
With your own interpretation and expression of it.
Yes.
And you're doing the same thing with the sculpture.
Yeah. Where that could be time. That could be time.
Interesting. In our environment, what are the challenges you feel that upcoming artists are currently facing, and how should they overcome them?
Okay, so I don't teach, right? However, when we did, I've got a gallery space. John is the coordinator of the gallery space. And we did a show like some years ago called Fresh. It was artists under the age of 30. And so we had an open call. We got 600 entries into it. We got a lot of entries. We chose like 50 odd entries. And we did a show. And at that point, I didn't know there are so many art institutions in Pakistan, away from Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad, in Gujarat, and Mirpur Khas, there are lots of art institutions producing great young artists. And once they graduate, they have nowhere to go. There's very little private or public funding for young artists, or even for artists, period. So, at least more established artists can find clientele and galleries that'll show them. So there's a real dearth for support for young artists that needs to be there. Do
you think that this community is developing in a way that support will come up in the next, let's say, decade?
Inshallah. I mean, it's up to the country, right? How much you respect yourself at the end of the day.
How is it?
No, seriously, it does. Like, what did Hitler do when he conquered a country? He took away the art. Because you take away the art, you take away the soul of a place. It all depends on you. We are always looking to be sort of like acknowledged by the outside, by the West, by the powers that be. Oh, they like Nusrat, so now we like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. So this needs to happen organically. So we have to celebrate our own heroes ourselves. And that's why there's a great need for things like museums. Other than my father's, neither Karachi or Lahore our great grand Mughal city, has a museum of contemporary and modernist art.
Shocking, right?
Shocking, embarrassing.
30
When
million,
they call
25
us
million people here,
exactly,
and there's
and
no art
culture,
museum.
and we have an intellectual scene here. Where is it? Where are these museums?
Why do you think one hasn't been built? The means are there, the people are there,
I
the
don't
art
know.
is
I
there.
don't know. I'm just a I'm a bottom feeder. How would I know?
Right.
But it's not there, and it has to be there. That's all I know. I don't know why it's not there. I don't have time for that.
Right.
Let's just move on.
Right.
It's not there. Inshallah, somebody has to make it happen. And it's so important because artists, like, I can go to the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa. It belongs to everybody.
Yeah.
It belongs to everybody. Our modernist and our contemporary scene art has to belong to everybody, not to people like you who are part of the chattering class.
Right. I don't have the Mona Lisa, don't worry. Do you ever compare our art to Indian art? Do you feel that the
Johnny, there's so
subcontinental...
little communication. I know Monica Nurala, who's a part of the Rux Collective, but we have to meet in Paris. There's so little. I would love to see, Modi, apparently, I heard a rumor that he's put 100% duty on Pakistani artworks. And I want Indian artists to come here. I want to, you know what I mean?
What do you think is the core difference between Indian art?
I have no idea. I'm not knowledgeable enough about Indian art to truly comment on it. I know the modernists, Baba and Hussein, and I know all the modernists, but I don't know what really is happening. And I know the heavy hitters who made the international scene. But I would love to know much more about art.
And have their modernists moved in a different direction from our modernists?
Johnny, the modernists all moved in. See, that's the difference. In the time of the modernists, each person, whether it was Indian or Pakistani, had their own space. Then there was this great explosion of art schools, both in India and Pakistan. And now a lot of contemporary work goes in movements, like nice bowel, they go in movements. And a lot of the work looks the same. But the modernists were all tremendously independent, with their really own sort of points of view. Their styles are so signature. You can see an M.F. Hussain, this is an M.F. Hussain. You see a Baba, it's a Baba. Ahmed Pervez, Gulgee, Sadakan. Each one had its very territorial about their space. It was a very different scene to now. Art is global, so it looks a lot alike, no matter whether you're in New York, London, or Karachi.
So most art has converged into the way it looks.
In this globalization, yes.
I was listening to something yesterday where they're saying the same thing about music.
Oh, really?
Music has converged to a point where there's almost singularity in the way music sounds.
Right.
Wherever
it comes from.
Wherever it comes from.
See, that's why I want to know more about Indian art, because I just want to know something beyond the sort of what's underneath it, there must be other levels and layers,
Do you think that there's a way to leave the politics aside to bring the culture together, or is there always be...
Well, no, I was hoping for nuclear war, because I'm old and I don't want to do Botox. So whenever there's a problem between India and Pakistan, I want them to press the button so my agony can be over. I think it's time for me to go. What?
That definitely is the nuclear option. I would not recommend that. How's the museum?
Oh my God. Doing my father's museum was one of the most... I did the Biennale. I was the curator of the first Karachi Biennale in 2017, and we took 2 years over it. Me and my team, Zirak Ahmed, Humayun Maiman, Sarah Paganwala, they all worked for 2 years for free for me. And then Zabina came in the last 4 to 6 months as a curatorial advisor. Everybody was free. Nobody charged. I didn't charge. And that was a real leap of faith. And, we pulled it off thanks to the team. But this museum was a challenge. It was my father. I didn't want to curate it. I kind of was I had gotten someone else. They backed out on me. And then I was like, okay, I guess it's me. And it had a certain energy of its own. I'm not a very airy-fairy guy, as you can hopefully tell. I'm not into the spiritual, I'm so not. I'm trying my hardest to not talk about it. But it had an energy of its own, and it really felt like Zaro and Gulgee were dictating it, and just it just happened. It's once I started curating. I mean, it took 2 years of renovation, which I worked with Samina Anjarwala, my incredible architect, who's like Atila Tahan. She's this Pakistani woman, and Pakistani women can be just so incredibly strong and dynamic. But curating it, and it kind of fell into place, and I've divided it into 17 sections, and I hope I've done a good job, inshallah. And at the moment, we're working on the museum handbook.
Okay.
I'm really into publications, and if you go into my website, there's a whole catalog section. And I beseech all your listeners to go into my website, and everything in my website is downloadable. I believe information has to be free, and whatever I can put out, I do put out. And these are documents for us. And and John edits a lot of my catalogs. And when we put out these catalogs, I don't tell the artist, like, you don't necessarily have to write about the show. You can write about whatever you want. They become like open platforms to think, and to document a certain time, and using the show as an excuse.
That's amazing. I mean, the fact that you first mentioned that Karachi and Lahore don't have a museum, yet here you are, who you've actually created a museum at whatever
For
scale
my father.
it is. Even then, it's something that...
It's limited. It's just Gulgee.
But that's still a step in the right direction.
Inshallah, Johnny. And
if these small steps...
If idiot me can do it,
that's exactly... Well,
you
I'm
know,
not
like,
going to say
you know
that.
what I mean? Come on, you all. What's wrong with you? Wake up, Pakistan.
So if you can do it, and I don't mean it from the way you said it, but I'm saying that if one person can just aggregate the art that they had access to, right?
Yeah, but Johnny, museums take, intellectual energy, time. Right. It has to be pakka. Now you can't just do a museum.
Right.
It's not just about putting a bunch of paintings together, but we have the intellectual depth in Pakistan. One thing we do have, this country has intellectual depth.
Where is it hiding?
No, it's all there. Where's the money? See, it's not just money alone. How did the Renaissance happen? Because money and vision came together. There was the Pope.
So the money is there.
It's there. But money and vision have to come together. That's a paradigm.
The vision is not there.
The vision is not there. That's where the money is there.
And I think
the people who have vision don't have the money. It's not connected.
And usually that is the case. Even in time, you'll find that the people with the vision are not the ones with the money. They'll find a way to pitch it to the people with the money. What's missing, I believe, is what you said earlier, is we don't believe
in ourselves.
Correct. We are looking for external validation.
Exactly. It's always from the outside.
And until we finally believe in ourselves and our own ability and our own vision and the ability to achieve greatness that we can create, our own people are not going to put money into it because they don't believe either.
Ditto.
And I don't have the answer on how a person can reach a state of self-belief. Right? Well, not a person, but a nation.
A nation.
How does a nation reach a state of believing
Well,
in
what's sad about our nation is everybody's young here. They want to believe.
They do.
It's all the geriatrics like me. They're the problem. We are the problem. You are not the problem because you're a spring chicken. But you know what I mean? That's the problem. There's too much looking in the past, what we could have been, what we should have been, the promise of, shut up and go away. I don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
These kids don't want to hear this. They want to dream.
They need
Allow them to dream.
There's a great show on Netflix right now called 0 Day. We need a 0 day where we basically say this is 0 day. It is from here we look forward. We just don't look back. And let's go. And that's it.
Well, every day you should just look forward. You know what was cool about my parents? They were murdered when my father was 82 and my mother was 72. And they've both gone through heart attacks, and where I had to steel myself. Oh my God, they might die. I was spending nights at AKU. But the month before, they finally got super, well, and they were dancing till 4 o'clock at SOS Ball. And my mother was like, we invited a lot this winter. I hope you invited someone. I'm like, oh, Marv, go away, And they never looked back. I would always wait. They never had stories, Beta ek zamane mein, when I met de Gaulle, he was incredible. They never had anecdotes. They were always living in the now. And in the future. If this 82 and 72-year-old woman can live in the now and forward, Why can't the rest of everybody else?
That is
Why do we
amazing.
even need a 0 day? Just live in the now and forward. What has happened yesterday is gone. What do we do now and how do we move forward?
That's actually a really good way to look at it.
You know, they never look back.
And we as a nation are stuck looking back.
I think some of us are.
Some of us. Okay, I generalize.
You know,
yes.
I think some of us are. I think some
But
of
the
us
ones
are.
that are looking forward are unfortunately restrained by the ones looking back, because the
Right.
ones looking back hold the reins.
Perhaps. I mean, I can't. The nation. These are big things to figure
Yeah.
out. I can't even figure out myself. You know, that's why I work. Who am I? Why am I here?
and that comes back to, this other point that I always raise, is that every individual should focus on their own circle of influence.
Exactly.
Forget the big
Johnny.
picture. Forget everything.
You know, forget about
it's
it.
beyond our pay
Forget
grade,
about
right?
it. You know, just forget about it.
That's
you know?
so. That's what I tell people. People ask me, why do you do this? I said, for exactly that reason. This is
This is what I can do. This is what I can do.
You know?
Exactly. I think.
And if 10 people watch it, great.
Fine. Exactly.
So, it's about your contribution.
Right.
And finding joy in that contribution.
Exactly. And don't even think of just
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I never think I contribute shit to anything, you know.
I mean, I think you've done a fantastic job.
You
You've
know.
built a great name for yourself.
So many gentlemen.
Yeah. But I appreciate you taking the time out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Faizan.
I loved the conversation. And I wish you all the success for the museum. And I really hope it's a source of inspiration for others
Inshallah.
to do something like this, bigger, greater, because our country
Or
needs
just
it.
do.
Or just do.
Or just do. There's no. I mean, I would be terrified if I was the source of inspiration for anybody, you know. But but I would just say, just do.
Yeah.
Just do. And nobody's interested in why things don't happen.
Yeah.
People are only interested in what can happen and what you can make happen.
Amazing. Thank you.
Love
a
ya.
great note to end on. I appreciate it. And best of luck with the
Oh,
museum.
yeah, thank you, Minijan. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for staying tuned. Like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know who you would want to see next time. Bye-bye.